This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there, it's Jeff Cutastrophe. Welcome to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, December the 29th, in the year 2007, the New England Patriots finished off one of the greatest, if not the greatest, regular season in history, as they beat the New York Giants to be 17-0. And I know you're going to be saying to yourself, hang on a minute, didn't the Giants beat the Pats? I'll explain more later. But anyhow, the 2007 New England Patriots became the 8th team and the last team to finish the regular season undefeated, and the first since the 72 Dolphins. Of course, many teams that finished on regular season undefeated in NFL history were from the pre-Super Bowl days, like the 1940s and all that. So basically, yeah. The Pats looked good. They were the first team to be a perfect regular season since the NFL decided to go from 14 to 16 games back in 1978. Of course, now we have 17 games, which is pathetic, but what can you do? Anyway, they broke the record for victories in a single season, shared by the 1984 Niners, the 85 Bears, the 98 Vikings, and the 2004 Steelers, who were all 15-1. The Pats were 16-0, and all that. But anyway, the 84 Niners and the 85 Bears won their Super Bowls, Super Bowl 19 and 20 respectively. The 98 Vikings and the 2004 Steelers would lose their conference championship games. Ironically, the Patriots were the team that sunk the 2004 Steelers. So anyway, the Patriots were still pretty good and all that. They were called the 7th greatest team of all time. Still. Anyway, the Patriots were in deep trouble. They lost to the Colts in the AFC title game the previous year, wherein they blew that 21-3 lead. The Patriots got their wide receiver situation settled. They lost 2 in the offseason. The Patriots got Dante Stallworth for free agency and made trades that got Wes Welker from the Dolphins and Randy Moss from the Raiders. And boy, that was one huge trade and all that. Welker would actually tie for the NFL lead in receptions, and Moss would set the record with 23 touchdown catches. Of course, the NFL was not happy with Spygate and all that, so they were really heavily fined and all that. But the Patriots looked pretty good and all that. The Patriots were 11-0 and clinched the AFC East with 5 games to play. It was actually the 4th time since the NFL introduced the 16-game schedule in 78 that a team clinched their division by their 11th game. The other teams were the 85 Bears, the 97 Niners, and the 2004 Eagles. The 97 Niners when they were 98. Wow. I never would have guessed. And the Eagles by their 11th game by the time with 5 games left. Anyway, so yeah, the Patriots had some problems. I mean, they lost Marquise Hill, who was a great defensive end, because he fell off a jet ski but did not wear a flotation device. So there's a few staff changes. Brian DeBoll, the wide receivers coach, left to become the quarterbacks coach for the Jets, and then Nick Caserio was the wide receivers coach. Former Duke University quarterback coach Bill O'Brien was offensive assistant. He would soon become a Houston Texans head coach, if memory serves me right. Free agency was huge with the departure. Daniel Graham signed with Denver, and Tully Banta Kane signed with San Fran, and Corey Dillon wanted to be released. Tabaki Jones was released. Todd Sullivan was a Denver Bronco now. So anyway, Josh Miller was released by the Pats in training camp. But the rivals, they got Wes Welker and Randy Moss, which was huge. They also added Sammy Morris, Kyle Brady, Dante Stover, Kelly Washington, Pro Bowl linebacker Darius Thomas, Torrey James, and Eddie Jackson. So yeah, they re-signed many potential free agents. Larry Izzo, Junior Seau, Troy Brown, and Randall Gay, among others. And Asante Samuel was the guy used for the franchise tag. So they picked up Brandon Merriweather in the draft in the first round. So they looked pretty good and all that. You know, the regular season, they beat the Jets 38-14. That was that famous spike game. Then they beat the Chargers 38-14. The Bills 38-7. The Bengals 34-13. The Browns 34-17. The Cowboys 48-27 in Dallas. Miami 49-28. Washington 52-7. Indy 24-20, getting revenge for that AFC title game loss. A bye week, and then they crushed the Bills 56-10. The Eagles, they narrowly beat 31-28. They narrowly beat the Ravens 27-24 on Monday Night Football. 34-13 win over the Steelers. 20-10 win over the Jets. 28-7 win over the Dolphins. And, of course, the final game, 38-35 against the New York Giants. It was one heck of a game. So let's talk about that game. Week 17 game. It was a Saturday night on NFL Network. However, because of how good the Patriots were, the NFL arranged a three-way simulcast of the game with CBS and NBC, who really had nothing to lose. It was the first national simulcast of any NFL game since Super Bowl I. So this was amazing. In fact, the Patriots clinched the 1 seed, obviously, but the Giants were the 5 seed no matter what happened. So it looked like it. So it was Tampa versus the Giants in the playoffs, no matter what happened with the Giants. But, you know, you could still ruin the Patriots' chance to go 16-0. It was a tight game to the bitter end. The Patriots win 38-35, as I said. That it was huge. So the Patriots joined the 72 Dolphins, the 42 Bears, and 34 Bears as the fourth team to be undefeated in the NFL. The 48 Browns were undefeated, but they were in the AAFC. But they did what they said they would do, and they actually broke a record for point differential. They scored 315 more points than their opponents. That was the most since 1942, if you can believe that. Of course, this was 2007. This was very much huge. 15.7 million people watched the game on CBS, 13 million on NBC, 4.5 million on NFL Network, and 1.2 million on local stuff. It was the most watched regular season game in 12 years. And then they would take on the Pats would take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in the divisional round, beat them 31-20, then beat the Chargers 21-12 in the AFC title game. Even though Philip Rivers had a torn ACL, he still played in that championship game, which was gutsy, but we won. And then, of course, the Pats were going to the next round against, the Giants. Like, what? I already did something on Super Bowl 42. So basically, I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm really pissed off. How ironic that the Giants, the team that the Pats beat to be undefeated, were the ones that came back and bit them in the butt. I mean, the Giants had a tough road, and I commend them for their road. I mean, they had to go to Tampa and beat the Buccaneers. I kind of figured they were going to win. Then they went to Dallas, took care of their division rivals, making Terrell Owens cry at the post-game press conference. And they had to go to the Green Bay in the freezing cold, pick off Brett Favre in what would seemingly be his last Packers game ever. Lawrence Tynes missed a couple of key field goals, but then in overtime, when it counted, he kicked one through the upright, sent the Giants to the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and that fucking Dr. C from Sports Illustrated, he just had to make that article and all that about how the Giants could beat the Patriots. I swear the Giants read that over and over again. They ruined my Pats. Fuck you, Dr. C. Fuck you. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.